In the last section, we talked about linear measurement, and linear measurement is always one dimensional. But now we're going to be talking about area, and area is always a two-dimensional concept. So, no matter what your units are, anytime we're talking about area, it's always your units are always squares. So, square feet, square miles, square inches, square yards, all of those are areas because they're squared. Now, we do have a couple of new conversion factors that we need to know about, and an acre takes into account that this is units that's being squared already, so we don't have to worry about squaring that extra. An acre is a square measure. All right, so let's jump in here and say our first example says convert 7,000 square feet to blank square yards. All right, so remember our dimensional analysis. We're going to start off with what we're given, which is 7,000 square feet over 1. Now, we don't want feet, we want yards. So we're going to put in feet down here on the bottom and yards at the top because we do know the relationship between those. There are 3 feet in 1 yard. But it's not yard, it's yard squared and feet squared. So what we have to do to compensate for that is we have to square the top and the bottom. But you don't want to do that until after you've already put in your units. You put in your conversion factors first and then square. So now when I square 1, I just get 1. But when I square 3, I actually get 9. So whenever I go ahead and simplify this, square feet and square feet will cancel. I'm going to have to take 7,000 divided by 9 to get 777.8 square yards. So you just have to be very careful about squaring what you need to, and then you'll be just fine, especially if you have the dimensional analysis idea down pat from the last section. Okay, this next one says convert 15 square miles to blank acres. So we're going to start off with 15 square miles and put that over 1. Now, we don't want square miles, so I'm going to put it miles on bottom. And is there a relationship between miles and acres? Actually, there's a relationship between square miles and acres. So I can go ahead and put in square miles and acres, and that relationship is 640 acres to 1 square mile. So now my square miles cancel, and I have to multiply 15 times 640 to get 9,600 acres. All right, let's try another one. This one says convert 3 acres to how many square feet? Okay, so let's always start off with what you're given. So we're given 3 acres. We'll put that over 1. Now, we do know that we can get from acres to yards because that was in our conversion factors at the top of the page. So I'm going to put acres on bottom so it will cancel. And I'm going to put square yards on top because that is a relationship between those two things. And that relationship is 1 acre is 4840 square yards. So now acres will cancel, and our answer would be in square yards, but we don't want that. We want square feet. So I'm going to have to multiply by another conversion factor. If I put yards on bottom so that it will cancel out, there is a relationship between yards and feet, and that relationship is 3 feet to 1 yard. But I don't just want yards, I want yards squared. So I'm going to have to square the top and the bottom. Now by doing that, 1 square yard and 1 square yard, those will cancel out. And when I square 3, it actually becomes 9 square feet. So when I multiply 3 times 4840 times 9, we should end up with 130,680 square feet. Alright, now I've went ahead and listed out here for you several of the formulas for area. Now there's one that's not on here that is actually in your homework, and so I'm going to give that one to you here in just a minute. But for the most part, these are all of the formulas that you're going to need in order to be able to do your homework. And let's just jump right in and see what we're doing here. This example says find the area of these triangles. So for area of a triangle, if you'll look back up at your formulas, area for a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. And it always says B is the length of the base and H is the height to that base. So here our height of this triangle, and the height is always perpendicular to the base. So if I fill in what I know, I've got 1/2 times the base, which is 18 centimeters, times the height, which is 6 centimeters, and half of 18 would be 9. So if I have 9 centimeters times 6 centimeters, that should end up being 54 centimeters squared. Centimeter times centimeter would be centimeters squared. Okay, now what about this one? Again, the area formula for a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. In this case, though, in order to have a height, our height had to be drawn outside of the triangle, because nowhere in here could I draw a line that's perpendicular to that base. I had to go outside the triangle in order for that to happen. But that's okay, because we just plug it into our formula now and say the area is going to equal 1/2 the base, which in this case is 6 centimeters, times the height, which in this case is 4 centimeters, and half of 6 would be 3, times 4 would give us an area of 12 square centimeters. Alright, let's do a few more figures here. This one says find the area of the square. So in order for us to find the area of the square, we need to know our formula for area of a square. And the area formula for a square is the side squared. So in this case, our side is 5 centimeters. So that would be 5. Let me go ahead and write out the units too, just so we can see that. So 5 centimeters squared, which would be 25 square centimeters. Next we have find the area of the rectangle. So I would need to go back to my formula sheet and find the area formula for a rectangle, which in this case would be area equals length times width. So that means that our length here is 13 centimeters. And our width here is 9 centimeters. So when I multiply 13 times 9, I end up with 117 square centimeters. Very good. Now we're asked to find the area of a parallelogram. And the area of a parallelogram, the formula is the base times the height. So for our base here, we have a base of 8 centimeters. And we have a height here of 5 centimeters. Again, the height is always perpendicular to the base. So 5 centimeters. So now when we multiply those two together, we get 40 square centimeters. Now here's the one that we didn't have on our formula sheet, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to you so that you'll have it. This is a trapezoid, and we're asked to find the area of the trapezoid. Well, the formula is area equals 1/2 times little base plus big base times the height. And whenever we say little base and big base, those are the parallel sides of the trapezoid. So here, whenever I go ahead and plug in all my numbers, I'm going to have 1/2 times the little base, or the little parallel side, is 8 centimeters, plus the big base, or the larger parallel side, which is 10 centimeters, times the height, which is always, again, parallel to the bases, perpendicular rather to the bases. So that would be 5 centimeters. So whenever I put these together, I'm going to have 1/2 times 8 centimeters plus 10 centimeters would be 18 centimeters. And then doing order of operations, 1/2 of 18 would be 9 centimeters times 5 centimeters, which would end up being 45 centimeters squared.